We are live. So, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of SEO Bytes with Nitin. And today we'll be talking about one of the hottest topics in the industry. And the topic is SEO audits. So, a topic that everyone talks about, but no one is, well, not no one, but not everyone is master of. But the good part is we have two really amazing experts with us, two masters who will be talking about this topic and will help us with some really secret tips that can help us nail our SEO audits. But before I welcome them, I just wanted to thank you all for the wonderful response once again. We got a lot of registrations, a lot of positive response from you guys. Thank you so much for that. I hope you all are safe and ready to level up your SEO game with us today. So really looking forward to this. And now I think we should start with the introductions. So we have with us Lucas. I think this guy doesn't need any introduction. So he was there at SEMrush conference in India, and he delivered a topic about Bahubali. So everyone in India, well, I spoke to a few people after that conference as well, and people know, okay, Lucas, the Bahubali guy. So that's the identity he has set up there in the country. And he's really a Bahubali. He's really a master of this topic. I have spoken with him multiple times, but whenever I speak with him about SEO or even general stuff, I just love talking to him. He's a wonderful guy. So I'm super happy and glad that Lucas is here with us. And now I would request Lucas to give a quick introduction about himself, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Nitin. Hi, guys. So, greetings from East London, and this is always pleasure, honor, and privilege to be here with you guys and to share some knowledge. I hope that in this difficult time, everyone is safe. Everyone is getting through that, lockdown and all that stuff. And we are getting closer to the end of this, and I think the SEO industry will be really, really, really booming, and that's always fantastic to be, with such a clever people around and share some knowledge, learn a lot, and yeah, thank you very much, Semrush.
Well, lovely. Thank you so much, Lucas, for joining us today. And I'm really looking forward to hear some really, secret tips like how you do SEO audits, so that we can all learn from that and nail our SEO audits as well. So, Lucas, I'm interested in knowing what exactly are you working on these days. You're always working on multiple things, and you're always your hands are busy with different things. So, what is one interesting and the most important thing for you that you're working on these days?
So there is not a single thing that I'm working on these days, but I have more and more customers which are e-commerce. Back in the day, I was not that often working with e-commerce, and that's one thing. Very measurable campaigns. The other hand, I have SaaS. Surprise, surprise! Lots of SaaS companies, lots of fantastic tools. From lots of them become like very, very good colleagues, friends of mine. And every week we meeting, we doing consultancy, we are measuring. Some of them are acquired right now, some of them may be acquired right now, or in the nearest future, but predominantly 80% of the time I'm doing that good old SEO. That some people are saying that SEO is dead. Yeah, tell me. This is like with Rolling Stones concert. Every time Rolling Stones are saying that this is our last concert, and after this one there will be 5 other one would also be last. So yeah, this time that we are in the lockdown made me also able to work way more efficient, because there is no more request from customers, hey, can we meet, can you come to London? It's a distances, it's a time, and so on and so on. Every day I have chop 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 chop. My calendar is full and I'm working with customers, different challenges, different issues, different solutions, but all good SEO.
Brilliant. That sounds super exciting. Well, thanks once again for joining us today. Looking forward to hear some tips from you. Now, moving to the second expert, that's Alicia. And Alicia is from Ukraine, and she's an amazing technical SEO. I heard some of her talks. She's brilliant. And I'm so happy to have you here with us, Alicia. And you are pretty organized as well. I remember when we spoke about the whole topic, and she accepted the invite. So thanks for that, Alicia. And then within like 3 days, she was like done with the presentation for this show. She's amazing. I mean, yeah, I've met a lot of people, but someone like her who's really humble and approachable and super easygoing. Yeah, really happy to have you here, Alicia.
Thank
Now I would
th-
request you to introduce. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
thank you for inviting. I've got a thunderstorm starting right at the moment, so internet is a bit of sometimes. However, I'm working mostly on my own SEO projects, and they are in lead generation sphere, mostly in USA, and some of them are in Europe, and sometimes just consulting on SEO. So I'm looking at many websites, and with some of that experience, I can share how I do the audit thing and what around that and what are the typical problems and how to fix them. That's in short.
Brilliant. Yeah, that sounds great. Really happy to have you here and looking forward to hear those tips from you. And Alicia, you're working on SEO audit, so that's like one thing you're of course master at. Apart from that, anything else that you are recently experimenting or you want to just talk about that?
I'm more about technical stuff, most of them. So I'm not so well versed in UX, or maybe don't know that much about the outreach and other elements, but I'm experimenting with images a lot and with technical stuff, like with tags, semantic tags, and everything around that, some code, and how the web page is perceived by bots, and also following lots of people who talk about knowledge graphs and entity-based search, Bill Slavsky, Jason Bernard, and all those wonderful people. But I'm looking more at this from the point of view of return on investment. So not only that it's an interesting topic to discuss and research, but what we can get as SEOs and business owners from that. So how can we rank our websites higher, get more target audience, and convert it into the customers from that point of view?
Gotcha. That sounds exciting. Well, thanks for joining us once again. And well, now we have a lot of people waiting for the real show. They want to listen to you, Alicia, presenting the SEO audit story, and then we go to the panel discussion. So we got people from India. We got people from we got someone from Mongolia as well. We got somebody from London. A lot of people from India actually, Bangalore and India, Chennai. We got someone from Nigeria as well. Hey, Crawley, good to have you here. And then we got someone from Estonia. So yeah, and we got Galip from Bangladesh. So we have like a purely international audience here. They're waiting for the real show. So I think we should now jump to the presentation. So Alicia, stage is all yours now.
Okay, thank
There you
you.
go.
Okay, the SEO audits, it's such a huge topic that it's just impossible to cover everything in 15 minutes. I'll highlight a few major points that we'll discuss after the presentation. And before doing the audit itself, you've got lots of things to consider. I think that the first one that you should consider is the target of your audit. Who will be reading it? Who will be maybe implementing it or drawing some conclusions from it? Is it for the business person, or do you need to prepare some instructions for the development team, or do you need to please all of them? And that brings us to the reasons why they are needing that audit. Is it something planned? Is it like what you check on a monthly basis or yearly basis? Or do you have some very special problem or a hard problem and you need to solve it very fast and find the reasons why the traffic is dropping or anything else is happening? Thus, you set the goals and decide on the value that the audit should bring. So we're not doing audit for just the sake of doing audit. We need to bring some value. With the full SEO audit, when we are talking about all the elements, it's like an integral scheme. One doesn't go without the other. You cannot do them isolated. It just doesn't work that way. So you cannot rank a website, of course, with just code that cannot be read by robots, or if the content is missing, or that has no backlinks. And even if you do rank everything like that, but it is not optimized for the user, it will underperform in terms of profit greatly, and it will diminish all your efforts. I'm looking at it like an investment portfolio. We were talking at this beginning before the webinar started on SEMrush Going, where you can buy stocks. So you'd want to invest your time in SEO audits in a similar way, so to get the resources and to invest into the resources that get the utmost income. So you'd do everything at once and wait for the results. And after the goals are set, and you know what you want to achieve and what you are doing, you then start, but you don't start in the vacuum, in some space. Check that you have in hand. So you'll be checking the history of your project, including the domain and IP. Maybe you'll be looking at competitors. Maybe you'll need some competitive analysis. You'll be tracking rankings, of course, to understand where you are starting and to measure how effective your audit was at the end. You'll be looking at hosting, and then you'll start the audit, and it encompasses lots of elements, and they are impossible to list to full extent here. So I'll touch upon a few, which I think are maybe major ones. Most people start with technical and on page, which is the most common type of SEO audits. You'll check the code, the layout, the server configurations, some security issues, performance, of course, and basic things such as tags, matters, media files, which include images and videos and markup. And all the basic stuff that you can check can be easily automated, for instance, with SEMrush Audit tool, so that you don't need to waste your time on that, on all those broken pages and redirects and some basic stuff, but you can instead go further and dig deeper in whatever more you can find. So I highly advise you track the project's performance with that SEMrush Audit. When you are starting to check the layout after the basic things are done, so you see the code, if it's understood well by robots, if it can be validated, if the semantic tags are in place, or maybe they are just all missing, and you'll be checking for redundant code. Is the DOM tree too big? Is it excessive? The next part, server, can be pretty tricky for most of SEOs because it kind of needs some development background. So here's where I think the checklist can be really handy. I highly dislike checklist personally, but in this particular situation, if there's nothing extraordinary and you don't need to go too in depth with your analysis in server configurations, you can just use a checklist. If you need one, just let me know. I will share mine. You'll be checking cache, including client cache and network configurations, web server configurations, including all those tags, if modified scenes is very important, server responses, SSL, databases, and I highly recommend checking mail server. Sometimes it has kind of impact. You'll be looking at logs. For those, I know many people do struggle analyzing logs. For you who don't know anything about it yet, or you just want to understand how it all works, you go to SEMrush log file analyzer and upload your file into it. It's very basic, but it's very good to start from and get the data and Googlebot activity on your website. You then can analyze it for your audit. On page, in terms of technical and full audit, is highly massive topic with numerous elements, just to name a few. And those include structure and hierarchy and URL structure, encoding, again, those basic tags matters such as titles, canonicals, descriptions, headings. I particularly give prominence to images because I've tested them a lot and know that done properly, they do really move the needle. So I guess it's worth investing your efforts into the optimization. I'm looking at image content, if it's in line with the surrounding text, if the image content itself is understood the way I need it to be understood by Google or by other robots. I check for EXIF data. Again, the URLs of the images themselves, including the names of the images, other technical requirements, resolution, responsiveness. You'd want to see if they are served in WebP format for the browsers that support it. And of course, in terms of performance, you'd check the lazy load of the images. Again, in performance, you check also iframes, fonts, JavaScript styles, and I highly recommend watching previous SEO Bytes with Nitin, the one with Miracle and another one with Aleda Solis. They have already talked about Core Web Vitals a lot and user experience, and you get lots of insights from what they are talking about. In SEMrush particularly, you can use the report for Core Web Vitals. It's for 10 sample pages. You can track their history all in one place, and like on this screenshot, if there's any issue, you will see it straight away. For markup, it can sometimes seem confusing to SEOs, and it's often hard to explain to whoever you are doing the audit for, even sometimes to developers, because it's not a ranking factor on one hand, but its impact on your website performance can be really high. And I think it's worth investing resources into it and including into audit. So often SEOs ask, will I get higher rankings if I do all the markup? And there's usually no straightforward answer to this. So this one is definitely worth doing, but just harder to explain and sometimes hard to implement fully. Security issues, they should not be neglected as well. Even if you think that it has nothing to do with you and you don't have that kind of competition, you should stay aware that there are always people who try to benefit on your security errors. You can recall the latest Colonial Pipeline case when they had to pay $5 million to malware attackers, and thus you'd want to check even passwords maintenance and updates, not talking about SQL injections and other vulnerabilities. For content, there are some audits that focus on content only, nothing else, not even technical stuff, because there's much to do there. You'll check mainly for AAT compliance, even if the website is not in your money, your life section. If the topic is covered in full, and if you need it, all the elements of that topic, and if the landing pages and blogs are done according to user's intent and answer it fully, or if there are some kind of misconceptions preventing those from ranking, if you are using the keywords that are the ones you really need, and very effective analysis is on the content gap. Semantic audit, I heard one is done by Andrea Volpini. He's very good at semantics part, and related phrases, synonyms, text itself, interlinking. For myself, for my projects, I also highly recommend using organic traffic insights right from the beginning, even not for audits. For instance, like when you can see on the screenshots, when the traffic drops suddenly, you just go there and see if all the pages dropped or just particular ones, and what keywords were affected. And from then, you can jump straight into the issue and see what's happening and be quicker. Off-page or backlinks are often not included in SEO audit when it's focused on technical stuff, or it is a very basic one. Anyways, for backlinks audit, you check like anchors, the velocity of the links and how dynamically they were received by your website, if they are diverse enough, and if they provide you with some referential traffic. Of course, you check disavow file. And by online reputation here, I mean that it more refers to reviews on third-party website, especially if you are doing the audit for local business, such as like reviews on Google Maps. And the backlink gap is a very effective type of audit. So, and I've not even mentioned UX, and I'm the proponent of the assumption that SEO is getting more complex and that the game is becoming more hard for a typical SEO. You need to know lots of stuff. You need many tools. Of course, you can get away with SEMrush and automate a lot of things, but if you need to go deeper and solve some particular problem, you may need a few more. And it's more reminds me of a man being an orchestra man, like you play all the instruments all together when it comes to the essential skills required to perform everything. I think that the skills are essentially like the same parts of the audit backed up by vast experience. Preferably when that experience is in line with the niche and type of a website. But I think that one person usually cannot be well versed in everything, I'd suggest splitting and then having someone to put everything together, some do's and don'ts and like that. For if we like when you put it all together, if we recall the beginning of the slides, our goals and the target audience of the audit, what do you think? Do they need that long reference data about everything in SEO, about everything in the world, all these explanations, long lists with broken links, all that stuff? Myself, I found out that people highly dislike lengthy explanations. They don't even read it. Moreover, they just need a problem pointed out to them and how to fix that. That's it. And so I started to make really, really small files, and I'm giving reference data separately, and it's usually pretty much the same for all documents. And very rarely, quite rarely, developers do ask for it, but most of people prefer something very short, really short. And then we come to the implementation part. It's not that hard to make an audit, whereas it's more harder to bring everything to life. So what can you do to make the process of implementation easier and faster and more effective? And for people who are doing that, you just prioritize properly. Almost any website has some easy fixes that give a big growth or some sound growth, some quick wins if that's possible to find them. So you give that to the business owner, they implement quite fast. If that works, you've got more chances that the whole audit will be implemented sooner or later. They see the results and it's like inspirational for them. In that terms, people love to be provided with a timeline. Not necessarily like this one. Some prefer spreadsheets, some prefer simple Gantt charts. Just prioritize, set some days, and then you should point to them when they can expect the first results and what those results can be. You don't have to guarantee everything. Of course, it's impossible. It's just an audit. But things are very hard to forecast. But at least you can make some kind of hypothesis based on your previous experience, and that would help enormously. People are usually happy to receive that kind of thing. Thank you.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Alicia, for compiling everything for us and sharing a lot of knowledge in just 15 minutes. You're really good at time management as well, which not most of us are, especially on this big
Thank
topic.
you.
Well, Alicia, so I have so you mentioned in your talk that you dislike checklist, right? So,
Yes.
well, so I understand that point. So because SEO audits in particular is a very vast topic. So of course, I mean, if you're following some checklist, you tend to miss a lot of things which are connected. Maybe in some cases, when you see some pointers, and you tend to dig deeper to understand what is happening there, right? So I understand that point. But to be honest, I still believe checklists are amazing. At least they give you some direction, right? And they
And
just give you dots. And in some cases, let's say you are auditing a website which is non-e-commerce, but you have this checklist prepared for e-commerce, you can just strike it off that, okay, I don't need this, I don't need this, and this is an area where I need to dig deeper. But yeah, what's your theory? Why did you say you dislike them?
Because you don't go deeper usually on them, and checklists are very good to automate some tasks that you do on monthly
Right.
basis. So when you are checking a website for broken links, for those redirects and other problems, but they like hinder your insight, you like narrow-mindedness, some kind of that stuff. So
All right.
very hard to go beyond and see anything else.
Yeah, I hear you. And what's your take on this, Lucas? Do you use any kind of checklist for hints or something, or
Well, I think I understand Alicia point. However, it can structurize the way you work when there is something really unstructured, or you're going into these areas of auditing which you're not normally going, because if you are, then you know all the steps and what is important, what is not. So I'm fully on what Alicia said.
yeah, no, I agree as well. Even in my case, I was thinking about preparing a kind of ultimate checklist for myself when I do client audits. So So I started with, first pointers. Okay, the first point is understanding the business, had probably a manual scan of the website just to understand, what they are doing and what they're expecting, what kind of audience they have. And then started the fun part. So next point when I mentioned, it was like, okay, if this, then that, if this. So I started with a lot of if conditions there. So yeah, I understand a checklist is really, really hard, but I think I love creating some kind of list just to get ideas and just to keep my thoughts structured. That's
But
it.
I can add one thing into that checklists somehow are quite likable by people, by audience. Anytime you will do checklist or any
Yeah.
form of diagrams, people kind of like to digest this. If that wouldn't be true, then in the first place, the Mendeleev particles, or whatever you call this in English, wouldn't be that popular, and then SEO periodic table wouldn't be that popular.
Yeah.
SEO periodic. I always say, like, a Mendeleev periodic table is the first example of infographic.
Yeah.
Which is close enough to checklist.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for a quick discussion on this interesting topic. Yeah. And then we got a question from our audience as well. So we got a question about what tools do you use? So you mentioned about a few tools that you use in your audit. So can you just maybe, list down your, let's say, top three or top five tools that you use in your every single audit? So we can start with you, Lucas.
So one of the tools that I'm using is Plagiar Shield. It is plagiarism checker. Sometimes you have the situation that, let's say, there is an e-commerce store, and there are descriptions that the owner also is using on Amazon, on eBay, and checking this manually would be quite problematic. So Plagiar Shield is helping me a lot
That's almost
to.
always the case, right?
Yes, yes. There is another very interesting tool I didn't mention on the chat, infringement.report. It's like Plagiar Shield, but it's checking if someone stole images from your website. Less harming for SEO, but is potentially a way to leverage your backlink profile, saying, you've been catched, you stole my images. Now pay or link. Three, treat on or tricks, so yeah, so that's infringement.report. And I think SEMrush predominantly lots of different tools for different things. I'm using a lot link assistant very often. If there is, for example, citation requests, and I'm receiving this from somebody, I don't have a time to go one by one to check. I'm just putting this into link assistant, checking everything. Okay, done. Out of 100, 80 are submitted. So check, and that's it. Um, yeah,
Correct.
I think that's I also mentioned inlinks because, Alicia, you said about semantic. So inlinks and word lift, these two are really saving lots of time, and I cannot imagine that tagging with same as meta would be possible without the tool. That would be like humongous job. You would need to hire probably like 10 people who are doing nothing but tagging this every day, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And Alicia, what about you? What tools do you use?
Yeah, I'm also using SEO Ruler for the semantic part, and I'm also using whatever Lucas stated in links and word lift, of course. I prefer to set up my own environment in Python where I connect the APIs mostly by Google services and some validators, and I just grab Vision API, NLP API, all those stuff, and so that not I'm using some tools out there, but I prefer to connect by APIs to my own environment, so I have everything in one place, and it's easier to work with that, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. All right. So then I have another topic. So whenever you do audits, so your client, well, this is mainly, I'm saying client because we're talking about here client and, the service provider consultant relationship, but this also applies on, when you're working in house. So whenever you're working with a client, so client wants everything. I mean, they want to, they want you to cover absolutely everything. And they have like a lot of expectation. They assume that, once you do this SEO audit, automatically their organic traffic goes 2x, 3x, 5x, right? So I just want to, so Lucas, maybe you can share your experience here. So when you're working with clients, so how do you set the expectations? How do you align on expectations? Like what is the outcome, what they should expect, and so on?
Yeah, so I am always telling on the beginning that listen, you coming for an audit, and you can then stay with me. So I will be going through this audit as your kind of, this audit is like a route to success, or you can take this and say like, good job, I will pass this to my internal team, or I will implement this by myself. Fair enough. So that's regarding to what audit is, what purpose audit is serving. There is another thing, which is why the audit is done. And I have predominantly two cases. One is related to performance. Very often, we done a migration last month and we lost traffic, and like, was an SEO involved in the migration? No. Or the worst case scenario is like, Lucas, we will come back to you next week because we're launching new website. Don't launch new website, because when you will come to me after, there is nothing I can do, or very little I can do, because you may destroy. The different reason is when they coming to me and saying like, listen, I am planning to acquire that business or this business, and I want you to do a due diligence if there is everything fine, or there will be some surprises, or they want to merge, they want to acquire and merge business. It's super exciting case, because when I was in Uswitch or Zoopla was especially very famous of acquiring businesses, merging them together. I'm always using this metaphor that this is like you bought a house on the land where you have lots of space, and then every year you're building extra room here, there, a loft, you're bringing house higher, and your house is bigger and bigger and bigger, and more valuable and more spacious. Yeah, so this is the same equivalent with the website. When you acquiring, but not necessarily redirecting just 301, but you taking that structure and plugging into existing structure of the main website, and then you're doing all the technicalities regarding to 301. So that would be this two splits. I really like what Alessia said on one of the first slides, that it's also important who is the recipient of audit, what language you can use. This is the same problem with conferences. You need to know your audience, who is sitting in front of you. If that's our people, I hope nobody will take this as an offense, like a bit nerdy like me about SEO, and they love talking about backlink analysis and EXIF tags. Then I know how to talk to you. But if that's our if that's our CEOs, CMOs, who are 30 years in the market, 35 years in the market, and they are looking for general advices to convince CEO and the rest of the board, then I'm using different language, just so I can tell like, listen, we're doing this because of ABC, and if you will come to me and ask me the same way, how do I know that how much money I will get putting here X amount of money, then I will tell you like, listen, this is not an PPC. This is not possible to calculate it the same way like you used to with your PPC guys, for example. Yeah. So I think, this is worth to remember that, first of all, audit is either one-time go or the path to the success, where I'm starting consultations with the team, and I done a gap analysis, I done an on-page analysis, I done the technicalities, and then like front-end guys, dev guys are coming weekly basis and meeting me, and we chatting and we measuring impact, we reporting to the board. Or it is, for example, due diligence, that people want one-time report telling green, amber, red light, and then deciding if they can acquire business or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Alicia, do you want to add something to what you presented already about the topic?
Like easier for me because I'm mostly in my own project, so I don't need to convince anyone and to tell what that we need that or we need this, or I don't have that kind of expectation. But when I was consulting people, especially those who were flipping websites, those investors that buy those .com domains with already affiliate businesses running on them. Then they wanted, yes, to know and if they can earn more. But that's not really SEO mostly. I'll just checking that everything is okay with the website itself and there's no scam. But that's like another story.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad, Lucas, you mentioned about the language as well. So I realized, in last few years, when you speak with developers, maybe, you're speaking directly with CTO. Well, then, of course, when you are selling this, when you're pitching your audit project, it's a different language altogether that you're using. Well, then something that you're using when you're speaking with CEO directly, right? Somebody who probably does not understand technology, somebody who does not understand SEO, then it becomes a bit hard because they just talk about, okay, if we do this, what's the number we can expect? They don't care about, how you're tracking. And it's not just what
Yeah,
you're recommending, it's also about how you're implementing, right? So
the
those
outcome.
two things goes hand in hand. Yeah,
And developers especially, you need to know how to talk to developers. If you find a
yeah,
language with developers, you are on the path to success. But this is
exactly.
not something that will come fly by night, because developers,
Definitely.
they are very much thinking. I'm always saying, like, using the binary code: yes, no, true, false. Don't use the words "it depends." They don't like this, they hate this "it
Of course.
depends."
Yeah,
Don't use the fluffy words. And when you will, because marketing is sometimes like that. You cannot, you can only, like, with the quantum physics, the probability is there, yeah. And developers are very point on. So if you will be able to find a proper language with developers, then obviously you are on the path of success, because they will support your decision. They will say, like, yeah, last time he proved that it was good, so he explained me that why we doing this, and so on and so on and so on.
yeah, absolutely. And the good part is, well, I think if we talk about SEO 5 years back versus now, I think now a lot of people talk about SEO as data informed channel, right? Previously, they were like, okay, because somebody posted about it, then it works. But now people are running their own experiments and concluding things. And when you have this data informed decision making, then you can convince anyone who is data informed person, who's logical person, right? Well, you still have some people who are like, no, let's do this, we have to just grow it without knowing anything. But
Yeah,
yeah, at least data educates and convinces a lot of people like developers, like you mentioned. So yeah, I'm glad we are
absolutely.
moving in that direction as a community. All right. And then, so Lucas, one related question here. So now that we're talking about it, so whenever we work on audits, right, we have a lot of recommendations. So how do you convince whether something, and how do you together decide whether we should now, knowing how many resources it would need, how much cost it would need to implement, and so on, and business priorities as well. So knowing all other parameters as well, how do you decide whether any recommendation that you have in your list should be implemented or not implemented, and how do you decide priorities for that?
I don't know, should I answer? Maybe Alicia.
Yeah, go ahead. Whosoever wants to go ahead. Alicia, you
Okay,
want to go
it's
first?
it's it's usually no, I'm here. It's usually experience based. So when you have like 5, 10 years of experience, and you know that when you do this, the outcome is this, is that, and vice versa. And if you don't do that, your competitors will maybe do that, and like all that stuff. So it's mostly experience based, and a lot of depends on the testing. However, what I'm finding lately is that isolated tests are not as effective with me. I don't know why. Everything works in synergy. So all the elements together, you cannot change or tweak just one thing. Usually, it's very rarely when you can, something like really bad, that brings the result. So you'll need to prioritize a few things, not just one of them. And after doing all these tests and having all those experiences behind you, it's just, I don't know, it's the kind of the integrated in your processes, and you just offer other people what you are doing anyway. Hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Lucas, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, but could you repeat the question, because I was on the chat, sorry.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so the question was about, so when you share your recommendations, right? There are other parameters
Yes.
which also helps you decide whether we should implement this or not, considering, let's say, how many resources it would need, how much cost it would take to implement that. So how do you decide together with the owner of the website that we should go ahead with this or not? And in that case, how do you prioritize things?
So I have this kind of approach that, that was from the time when I was in the in-house, that I always trying to confirm and make sure that the people who hired me didn't hired me because, like, I can sell myself, but also because I can deliver. So I'm constantly putting myself under this kind of pressure to deliver, pressure to prove, and so on and so on. And because of that, I rather like to start from smaller things that can bring relatively big impact, that are easy to implement, and will change enough to convince the business owners that who can say, like, we should invest more resources, we should put more people, because we just put this and this, and I can already see the results, I can already see the effect, I can already see that traffic went up, that the conversion rate is higher, that the average order value is higher, and so on and so on. So this is pretty much how I am approaching to that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for sharing that. Well, even I was so as you know, because I was also in house recently, and I was also solving this problem using this model called RICE. RICE. R is for reach, I is for impact, C is for confidence, and E is for efforts. So combining these factors, you can get an ultimate score, which can tell you how you should prioritize things, which works great for me. And I think on top of that, whenever you have a big project, so just don't go for that big project straight away. Like you mentioned, Lucas, so you start with tiny projects, right? So if you have a big project, you can think about a quick MVP, which can give you some numbers that can convince everyone involved, and then you can decide on that. And when I work with clients, so straight away from day zero, I tell them that, hey, when we're working on it, working on this project, we are going to have two working streams running in parallel. So we will have one stream about fundamentals, where we'll be talking about tiny fixes, which can be worked upon, let's say 1 day, 2 day, and third day we can go live. And then we'll be working on some bigger projects. Let's say we are trying to use machines to write content for us. That project might take a couple of months, right? But if we are not implementing
Exactly.
anything for a couple of months, doesn't make sense. So if we have two streams working in parallel, well, that's amazing. We can show some immediate impacts, and then we have big needle movers, which are already there in the process. So yeah, that's what I do, and that works great for me. Sorry, Alicia, go ahead.
Yeah, and when you have some experience already back of you, you have like to show you. You may show the clients, I've already done that with this website and see the growth here. So, and on this website and on this, and you have a few cases that you can show that they worked, and it's not very hard to persuade a person that it works. And that was the situation.
Oh yes, absolutely. And then we got a related question from someone in the audience. So the question is, how do you give deadlines to your clients on performance part? So they generally ask, well, if you're working on this, when can we expect the traffic? So how do you answer this question? It's a very interesting question. So would love to hear from you.
Who? Me?
Anyone.
Okay, so look, I think after so many years, I'm confident enough to say on the first call, when someone is having call with me, or we have video call, I'm telling, like, listen, we should have a trial for 3 months, because it's not only about performance, it's also about principles, it's also about personalities, if we can or cannot work together, because sometimes people are thinking completely different way, and it's impossible to work. Or sometimes it can be like couple of blockers and 2 weeks. I think it's fair to say that you should reserve 3 months to see an impact. And obviously, me as a consultant, I depend a lot on the in-house team who is there to implement my suggestions. but yeah, it's worth to say to customer that, listen, let's do a trial. I am not working the same way like agencies, so I'm not trying to handcuff my potential customer to me for 12 months, and then, if you will like to leave the contract earlier, break the contract earlier, then you need to pay a penalty. I saw this kind of contract somewhere in Central Europe, let me stay quiet, and I was like absolutely shocked that you can ever sign something like that. I understand SEO agencies which are in the different positions, so they need to sign a long-term contract, but I want my customers to work with me because they trust, and they enjoy, and they feel excited every time that there is a meeting with me on Google Hangouts. And that's why I'm reserving this 3 months, just so we can, it's like this engagement time. We are not married, we are just engaged. After three months we can go forward, but again, it's rather rolling than handcuffing people and saying like, no, you signed contract for 36 months, now you need to stay with me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I also, go for this kind of engagement period, but for me, I prefer 6 months because, yeah, SEO can take, like, when you're working on bigger projects, it can take more time. And then, cases like this, like you mentioned, that, if the client is not happy, they say, okay, we will, just kill the contract in between, and then you have to pay some penalty. Well, to answer these questions, I say, okay, that's perfectly fine. I'm happy to sign on a paper that, if you're not happy with the performance, I will pay you, let's say, 50,000 euros as penalty. But you also sign on a piece of paper that whatever I suggest and whatever you're committing right now, if you don't give that, I'll kill the contract and you'll give me 100,000. How about that? And that's how, when you get this commitment on paper, I think that's more fun. And that happens when when you're really talking with people who can really, kind of unblock you in terms of resources. But yeah, that's fun. That's fun of working with clients. So Alicia,
Absolutely.
you were saying something. I'm sorry.
No, not really. I just wanted to say that sometimes clients themselves are not ready to commit enough. So you are making something for them. Do you wait because you want to make another successful case into your portfolio of successful cases, but they do nothing and don't implement anything at all. So sometimes you need to push the client on from your end. Just do something. Come on, let's do that. And it's sometimes also pretty hard.
And
Absolutely.
there is one more, this kind of super danger case when you're talking to relatively big company and you have meeting every week with a director of marketing or CMO, and when you're asking like, so who is going to write articles? Me. No, definitely not. Definitely not. A director of marketing will not be writing a content, and you will not be doing this. Like, bring me the guys from your team. I'm a team. Like, so it cannot work that way. You need potentially to hire some freelancers. You maybe need a hands-on agency. You definitely are not in the position that you're looking for a consultant. So this is also very important. I think as important as Alicia first, one of the first slide, the purpose of audit, the audience, you talking a language, and then understanding what's the difference between working with agency, working with consultancy, working with an SEO freelancer. That are completely different things, completely different scopes, and completely different way of engagement. It's that's why I feel obliged on the first call to say, like, listen, I'm not a guy who will be optimizing your title tags. I am the guy who will be working with your guys who are there. And then very often I'm like, yeah, this is exactly, we need some guidance. It's like, that's perfect. That sounds like a match. Or sometimes it's like, yeah, but I don't have anyone in my end. I'm not taking this because I don't, my reputation is there, everything I have, and I cannot risk that. And I'm saying, like, listen, if you want, I can try to recommend you somebody from my LinkedIn that you can go with, maybe who will be willing to be more hands-on. But this is definitely not me as a guy. I don't even have a time for that.
Yeah. And why would you pay, 10,000 bucks, for example, to someone like Lucas for implementing those tiny things, while you can, hire somebody for 2,000, right?
Exactly.
Logical.
Exactly.
All right. Well, with that, so I just wanted to say hi to Alicia from SEO Brews Live. We are her biggest fans. So, hi,
Thank you.
Alicia.
Hi.
Fan moment here.
Wow.
All right. And then I have another question, which is about SEO audit pricing. And then the question is also followed by another question, which is it worth giving out free audits? So, what's your take on this? How do you price your audits? How do you even consider giving out free audits to your clients?
Mm, again, me? I should start again. Okay,
Okay,
guys.
let's start with Alicia this time.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm not. I'm not having time even for paid audits. It's like no question I can do free. Like I have no capacity for doing everything I'm asked to do, so it's just impossible. I cannot lose my time in such a way. I've got family, I've got my projects and other tasks. So why would I do that? And I think that concerns with many people who know what they are doing and who are overloaded by their job a lot. So I don't think it's possible.
I agree with Alicia, and there is a different understanding of what is a SEO audit versus SEO audit. The problem with I'm right now starting to avoid even SEO audit. I'm just saying there is SEO analysis, 360-degree analysis, rather than audit, because for many years there was like, oh, free audit, free audit. First of all, free audit is very often like some kind of very basic export from very basic free tool, and delivered this, and then client is sometimes, now less because I'm working with mid large companies which understand these principles, but back in a day there was like, yeah, but why are you charging for audit? These guys are giving this for free. I'm like, that's the problem. There is audit and audit. There are different things, yeah. So definitely no, the free audits doesn't exist, and they should not be an element of pitch. They should not be an element of offer. I'm sometimes seeing like an offer itself containing like so many things that someone spends so much time, and client potentially ask 10 other agencies, so that the chance that they will choose the one that spends so much. No, my offer is mainly my price card, what I will deliver, and that's something. I'm happy to answer questions, but again, like Alicia said, I have family. I have no time for preparing something for free, just to convince. The fact that someone is coming to me, it means that they respect my skills. They understand what is this, why they need me. Regarding to price, I think it works that you have some range, and depends on the size of the website, depends on the predominantly size of the website, not even the size of the company, because that doesn't matter. The size of the website is how much time you need to spend. If website is multi-language, this you need to replicate this audit pretty much as many times as the languages is there, as much as you can, obviously, because you speak how many, two, three. I can speak two languages, plus maybe I understand. I speak passively Finnish, so I know when someone speaks Finnish, but I don't understand the word. So yeah, so like these things indicate the price, but I always have the range, and I know that sometimes maybe we are not a good match, but again, like. Most of the time people understand that this is lots of time you need to spend, but also lots of years of knowledge and approach to the problem, especially that I'm always trying to go very holistic. I'm not trying to go like, oh, here you need to change the color of button, and here you need to change the title tag. No, holistically, website as an
Yeah.
organism, how to make this healthier.
Yeah. Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, if we are just working on this machine based audits and delivering that as free audits, I think we are compromising on the quality, right? And then we are
Absolutely.
not associating ourselves as a brand with the quality SEO audits, like you mentioned, SEO audit and SEO audit, right? So definitely,
Absolutely.
yeah, a big no from my side as well. No free audits. However, if anyone has any specific question or case where they are kind of stuck, and And if you can clearly define your problem, you can just contact me. I'm very approachable. I'm happy to solve SEO problems, but yeah, not SEO audits. It's too big, and I spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I spend a lot of money as well on the tools that I'm using for audits. So yeah, for free, I will definitely not do that. All right. And talking about time, so we have another question, which is how long does it take to complete a typical SEO audit? This is another interesting one. So yeah, Lucas, you can go first this time. No confusion.
I understand the principles, and I'm trying to go with 2 weeks, which is quite stretching. But I'm trying to avoid situations that if someone really want audit, I'm trying to avoid to say no when I know that we are good match, but also trying not to compromise quality. And on the other hand, I'm trying to make sure that it's in delivered in reasonable time. So I think 2 weeks. So from the moment we agreed, I am setting up meeting in 2 weeks time somewhere. That is my kind of deadline. I know that I cannot push this meeting, and then I'm getting ready with this within 2 weeks.
Right. Cool.
And sometimes you get into the situation when the given website has some kind of critical error that you just cannot make an audit without them fixing it first. So sometimes it can take like 5 minutes, just fix this one, and then I'll continue. And it depends on how long they will be fixing it. But usually
Yeah.
that's pretty fast. But and then you don't know how long it will take because you cannot scrape the website properly and you cannot validate the code and everything like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, for me as well, I mean, I generally quote 2 weeks time, but sometimes when I'm working on other projects as well. So of course I cannot give enough dedicated time in 2 weeks. So I say, okay, 2 to 4 weeks. 4 weeks is like more what I commit, because some of the things are serialized as well. Let's say some of the parts where I'm, working with some other people as well. So I have to serialize that. And there, I think it can delay the whole process. But yeah, I think 2 weeks is I would agree with, well, not agree, but I'm on the same page as Lucas. So 2 weeks is what works for me as well. I think it's a good time to completely understand a website from an SEO perspective. All right, then I think we are done with the questions. We got a few more questions. I'm sorry, guys, whosoever asked those questions, you can catch us separately and get answers to your questions. But right now we're running out of time, so it's time to wrap this up. And before we wrap up, we will say goodbye in SEMrush style, where I would encourage, like I would invite our experts one by one. They can share their key takeaway, and they can also share their preferred communication channel where our viewers can reach them with their questions if their questions are not answered here. But guys, when you're reaching out, please do not ask for a free audit. Yeah. So let's start with a quick introduction. Well, not introduction, like key takeaway round. So Lucas, you want to go first?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much. Alicia, fantastic slides, and Nitin, thank you for having me. Thank you, Semrush. You can find me on SEO.London or on LinkedIn, or there is also Twitter on the chat. And key takeaway, I think the most important is first, try to understand what for is the audit, what's the purpose of the audit. And second, try to understand who you're working with. So the company, is this a company that will be later implementing this audit by themselves, or the audit is only to show the path that you will be working with the company for next 3 to 6 months. And that number 3 takeaway: no free audits.
All right, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us once again, Lucas. Alicia, go ahead.
I think I had the slide with my contact information, but anyways, you can. Thanks for inviting me here. And I most reachable in Telegram, though it's not stated in here, but it's like for Java. And in Facebook, I mostly live in the. I know that Twitter and LinkedIn are more popular in West, but just cannot walk and follow all the social media at once. Sorry.
Yeah, it's distraction, right? Yeah, cool. Well, Alicia, thank you so much once again for joining us and preparing such beautiful presentation with a lot of knowledge. and a lot of information for us. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, once again for joining us. My name is Nitin, and you can catch me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Just search for my name, and yeah, there you go. So you have my Twitter handle here, and you can just ping me there, and more than happy to answer any questions you might have. And yeah, I'm kind of approachable. So yeah, don't shy. And yeah, and if you're sitting in India and joining us from there, then take care of yourself. The situation in the country is not great. So stay home, stay safe, and take care of yourself and your families. See you next time. Thanks for joining us once again.